Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Daring Dialogues. I am your host, Shantae Charles. We are on Season 6, Episode 2. And if you have been following us all of this time, you know that today is Relationship Wednesday. It is our opportunity to deal with our personal relationships, and it's our opportunity to deal with ourselves. And I am on Daring Dialogues page on Facebook, and I'm sharing it over to my personal page. So if you would like to do that, if you are on Facebook, and you can find the Daring Dialogues page, which looks like so. All right, that's our Daring Dialogues page. And if you scroll down, you will see me live. Good morning. You will see me live, and you can share the broadcast. So I am very, very thankful. Hopefully I'm looking in the right direction. I think I need to switch my cameras so that I'm looking at both of you all at the same time. There we go. Much better. Good morning, blessings, Renee. Renee, is your last name Chapman by any chance? Or Chapman? Because someone won a prize at the end of season 5, and they emailed me, and I was like, you've won a prize, and I need your address so I can send it to you. And they never sent me their address. And I've emailed them a couple of times, and they have not responded back. So without an address, I cannot send your gift. So Renee Chapman, if you are out here today, please email me. Email me your address so I can send you your gift. All right? Thank you so very kindly. It's been waiting on you. So today we are talking everyday narcissism. And we usually talk about this on Monday, but since Monday was my wedding anniversary, I'm adding this to today, essentialism, the disciplined pursuit of less. What I have actually found out since I have joined some more networking, business networking groups, is that many of the six-figure earners know about this book, and many of them have read it, and many of them have learned to practice the principles of essentialism in order to improve their business life. Now, for me, essentialism is not just about improving your business life, it's also about improving your relationships. So we're going to dig into this today. But first, we're going to start with everyday narcissism. Everyday narcissism. Blessings, Renee. You can email me at reachshantae@gmail.com. All right, reachshantae@gmail.com, and I will type it in for you. And you can send me your address there, and I will mail out your gift. All right, thank you so very much. So, on yesterday, I'm going to start with a current event. Since we're talking about relationships, and we're going to start out by talking about relationships with ourselves. On yesterday, there was lots of fanfare about notably one of the world's, or considered the world's greatest athlete of our current time, and that is Serena Williams. Now, Serena Williams, and I'm going to see if I can bring it up. Serena Williams recently wrote an essay in Harper's Bazaar, I believe. All right. I'm not going to show the one where, yeah. She recently did an article in Harper's Bazaar, and I did read the article. And the article was pretty good because it was talking about all the ways in which she has had to prove herself, and how she felt at that last match with Osaka, and how she didn't want to take away from, it bothered her, it kept bothering her how that match ended with the argument, right? And she didn't want to take away from Osaka's win by sort of drawing attention to herself. But then after she apologized to Osaka, Osaka came back and basically said that it's important for you to stand up for yourself. And so she begins to share in this Harper's Bazaar article about her controversy with that match. However, and I'll show you one of the beautiful pictures that Harper's Bazaar took of her. All right. So there's the image. All right. There's the image. But then Harper's Bazaar also took another image of Lady Serena. And I won't show that one on screen because I don't think it's appropriate for my audience. But let's just say people are now comparing that photograph of her that has been taken for Harper's Bazaar. They're sort of comparing it to Sarah Baartman. And if you know anything about Sarah Baartman historically, she was paraded around and she was exhibited for her body shape and her body type. And I got into just a small conversation with someone, and they said, Lady Serena, they wrote the comment, Lady Serena, why did you have to do that? You are a champion. And I thought it was a good comment. But the other part about that I saw, even in Lady Serena's writing, right, is that she struggles with acceptance. She struggles with acceptance and learning how to accept herself. She struggles with having to fight all the time to be in a room or to be in a place or to be in a space. And this is not just a Serena Williams issue. This is a Black person's issue in America many times. It can also be a Black woman's issue, more specifically in certain arenas. All right. And so as I was thinking about that comment, the thought that came to me is, even though people perceive you as a champion, right? If you are a champion who is struggling with your identity, who is struggling with self-acceptance, who is struggling with people's opinions of you, right? You may do some things that are unorthodox to assert yourself, right? Which is what her image was doing. It was sort of like, I'm flashing you all, hey, look at me, I accept my body now, etc., etc. But then the problem that comes with that is people will begin to exploit your insecurities. And I'm going to read to you something that the Lord gave me last night as I thought about that particular image. And what happens to us, hopefully it'll pull up here. There we go. All right. Hopefully what I'm trying to get at will come across in what the Lord shared with me last night. And that is this. It can be detrimental to your future to be given a platform while still finding your worth. Her worth is not in how many grand slams she can win. Her worth is not in the size and the shape of her body. Her worth is in the fact that she's fearfully made and created by the Father. And so it can be detrimental to your future to be given a platform while still finding your worth. There are plenty of people who are willing to exploit your insecurities until you wake up and find your worth. Plenty of them. And then I thought about the fact of how many people are trying to find their worth through what they do, through what they can accomplish, through their external qualities, rather than finding their worth on the inside. Your desire for exposure, appreciation, or acknowledgement can actually lead you into the realm of exploitation. So on one hand, it's like, here I am. Yes, I'm amazing. Yes, I am a winner. Yes, I am a champion. And so here I am. On one side, that seems like owning yourself, but on the other side, it is exploitative, because you shouldn't have to get naked in order to prove your worth. You shouldn't have to get naked. You shouldn't have to be on a cover showing a part of your private self to public scrutiny. And so I hope that as people read her story, that they will begin to think about what it is that is making them feel important. What is it about your life that makes you feel important? And be careful that you are not drawing your importance from external things, because you can open yourself up to exploitation. We don't know how she's going to feel 10 years from now about that photo shoot. But the reality is, it's out there. It's in cyberspace. You can't remove it. So I just want us to think about that in terms of our relationship with ourselves. What are we utilizing? What are we putting in? What kind of efforts are we making in our own life? And what kind of value are we putting on ourselves? Is that value coming from external things? Or is that value coming from the fact that you know that you belong to the Father? That regardless of what you accomplish or don't accomplish, your worth is not based on how much you can get done. I know that's hard for some people, especially those of us who like to accomplish a lot of things. But you have to keep in mind that your worth does not come from that. It's good to get things done. It's good to have accomplishments. But that's not where your worth, your intrinsic worth comes from. And so if you have been basing your worth on what you do externally, I challenge you to change your paradigm. I promise, I challenge you to change your paradigm. Another post I want to talk about, this is on my personal page. I put up a post last night. Somebody had this meme. And again, we're talking about our personal feelings toward ourselves right now. Somebody had this meme, and I want to show it to you before I talk about it. Going to my personal page here. Ba, 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 ba. All right. Make sure everybody can see this. All right. Can you all see that? I know for some of you all, the top may read backwards, but it says pastor's life. There we go. All right. Let me see if I can open it up a little bit. Well, no, that's not helping. All right. So it says on here, I'm okay. And the person is smiling, I'm okay. But they're being stabbed in multiple ways. All right. They're being stabbed in multiple ways. All right. Now let me read you some of these stab wounds. The one at the top says friend zone, disappointments, stress. This is supposed to say confusions, but it says confusions, betrayal, expectation, frustrations, heartbreak, loneliness, option, and there's a little stone here that says fake friends, and then it says I'm okay. Now, the problem I have with this image is, first of all, it says pastor's life. Pastor's life. Now, do pastors experience heartaches? Yes, I'm a pastor. I've experienced them. Do pastors experience disappointments and stress and betrayal and expectations, sometimes unrealistic expectations, and heartbreak and loneliness? Yes, they experience those things. Why? Because they are human. But when you say that this is a pastor's life, that becomes a problem. Seasons, yes. Incidences, definitely. Pastor's life, that's a paradigm problem. That's a worldview problem. And if you are a pastor out here today, okay, and you see this as your life, this is your life. If this is your life, I want you to stop what you're doing. I want you to take a sabbatical, and I want you to go get counseling. Because if this is your life, you're on the way to a serious breakdown, either mentally or physically. And nobody wants you to be in that position or state. We need healthy people with a healthy worldview and image of themselves and others. Because again, if that is your worldview of what pastoring is, you need to see a therapist. Now, why do I say that? Why is she talking about this image? I'm talking about this image because it's saying in so many visual pictures that the only thing a pastor's life is filled with is pain. That the only thing a pastor's life is filled with is trauma. That the only thing a pastor's life is filled with is fake people. That the only thing a pastor's life is filled with is faking it until you make it. And that is a very dangerous place to live in and think that that is what your worldview is and your point of view is about life. That's not healthy. All right? And unfortunately, I know a lot of people who live from that paradigm that everything about their life is pain and suffering and brokenness and heartache, and they label it anointing. No, you need professional counseling. You do. And it's okay to need professional counseling. I know in some circles it is taboo to say you need counseling or to say that you need help. But if everything in your life, and I'm going to show that picture again for those of you who are stepping in, all right? Let me bring it up again. If everything in your life is pain, you need some soul healing. You need counseling and therapy. And again, there's nothing wrong with seeking out help. If you are in a constant state of pain, while at the same time, like this image, you are being pierced through with many sorrows, and you're smiling and telling people you're okay. You're not okay. You're in denial about what you are experiencing. You are in denial. You are actually denying your own personal feelings about what is happening to you. You are in denial of the results of your experiences, and you need professional help. beyond a coach. Because I'm a coach, but I'm not a licensed counselor and therapist. If this is what you are feeling, I want to encourage you today to reach out to someone and get help. This is not okay. This may be seasons of a person's experience, but should not be their entirety of their life. If it's the entirety of your life, I want to encourage you today to please go get professional help and counseling. I don't take that lightly. I'm not saying it as a joke. There are too many people who are ending their life, who are taking their life, and this is how they're feeling inside. And then their friends and family are shocked and appalled and devastated and destroyed when they take their life because of the pain of what they're experiencing, that they feel like they can't communicate and they can't tell other people that is how they feel. So it's a very serious thing, all right? And while I'm speaking on that, before I go into everyday narcissism, let me give you a number that you can call. Trying to get my phone to act right here. All right. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255. It is available 24 hours every single day. So if you find yourself experiencing unimaginable pain, if you looked at that picture and you identified with it and you said, that's me, and that's how I feel about life, and that's how I feel about relationships, and that's how I feel about ministry, I'm going to ask you to call and get some help. All right? Again, that number is 1-800-273-8255. You matter. You matter. Your mental health matters. Your physical health matters. The state of your mind does matter. All right? So let's talk about everyday narcissism. Yours, mine, and ours. Everyday narcissism. All right. The last one we talked about was myth number 3. Myth number 3 was the needs and wants of other people are more important than our own. As you saw with that picture, that leads to denial of your personal feelings. Let's talk about myth number 5 today. We are not lovable as we are. We can only become lovable through what we do and say. This is a myth. You are lovable just as you are. As we grow up, according to the first 4 myths, and as everyday narcissism embeds itself into our psyche, we eventually begin to intuit myth number 5. Through our parents and other adults, we learn at a young age that we are not inherently lovable just by being ourselves. Only if we do what adults want us to, follow rules, and please them will we be considered lovable. Yet each time we are valued only for what we do and who we pretend to be, rather than for who we are, a wound is created or deepened. Almost all of us figure out at a very young age that if we are obedient and compliant, then we are good and we will be rewarded. If we're disobedient and bad, we will be punished. Often the punishment for not being what others want is simple disapproval or silence or a sigh, a look of judgment, or sometimes it takes the form of harsh words or violence. This is how adults often unconsciously control and shape us into people who learn to take care of their needs and ignore our own. Since we come to believe this as a myth, that we are not lovable as we are, we learn to hide our true self from other people. We create a public persona of false self. What was that picture doing? I'm going to bring it back up again. Because this person, in this image, this person has created a picture of a false persona. All right? Replace the words I'm okay with I'm anointed. I'm anointed to struggle. I'm anointed to be walked on. I'm anointed to be a doormat. I'm born to suffer. Just replace the words I'm okay with I'm blessed and highly favored while feeling like this. All right? So it's a false self. A person who looks and speaks and acts the way we think other people want us to. We develop a facade to ensure that we will be liked, accepted, and valued. Meanwhile, we live in fear that someone may find out what's behind the facade, and so we learn to live a lie. This false self is then accepted by other false selves. Together, these false selves have created a world of partial, inauthentic connection. These connections are understandably less than satisfying. Human beings are wired to be connected in authentic ways, not false or trivial ones. Hopefully nobody wants to be in a relationship where your mask is meeting someone else's mask. I don't want to go to a meeting or an event or attend a fellowship, right? Where my mask is meeting your mask. Hello, sister, how are you? Oh, I'm doing fine and well. When I'm not. But the other person is also not doing fine and well, and they have their mask on too. So you're not being introduced to your real selves. Your mask is being introduced to their mask. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who live in that realm. Some of you don't live in that realm. Some of you sometimes have a hard time being accepted because you're not willing to live in the realm of masks. Some of us keep it 100, as they say. And if we're not feeling something, we're going to tell you. And if we're not feeling you, we're going to tell you. And if we're not feeling an event, we're going to tell you. And if we're not feeling an environment, we're going to tell you. And some people cannot handle that sort of transparency. And so they distance themselves from people who are quote unquote 100. Most of us have friends who keep it 100 with us all the time. They don't sugarcoat. They don't beat around the bush. They tell you like it is. And many of us can take those friends in doses. All right. But if you're a person who is used to wearing a mask and you encounter a person who is their real, true, authentic selves, and they don't wear masks, it can make you uncomfortable because it forces you to come from behind your mask. I'm going to read it one more time because I think it's a powerful statement. Human beings are wired to be connected in authentic ways to each other, not false or trivial ones. Because everyday narcissism, hello, Lady Donette, Evangelist Donette, appreciate you. Because everyday narcissism is so widespread, here is the world it has helped us to create. We spend our days trying desperately to belong. We focus on doing and being what everyone else wants us to do or be, or at least what we think they want us to do or be in order to fit in. This focus requires us to discount ourselves and deny our own truth day by day, moment after moment, over and over. This takes away much of our freedom and energy. It deprives us of the joy of simply exploring and searching and challenging and adventuring and discovering ourselves. It undermines our self-esteem and our self-confidence. We yearn for genuine connections with other people, yet we may not know how to create those connections. We only know how to create inauthentic ones by reaching out from one false self to another. Or perhaps we do know how to create these connections, yet we don't dare attempt to. We're terrified that if we do show people our real self, they will reject us and turn away. We fear that we will then lose what little limited, inauthentic connection we had with them. And so many times people stay in inauthentic relationships because they're afraid to be themselves. I don't know about you, but I simply do not have time for inauthentic relationships. You can take me as I am, as Christ has made me, or yeah, that's your option. You can take me as I am, or you can find someone else to go be false with. And sometimes you have to come to that conclusion yourself. You have to say, I'm going to be my real, true, authentic self no matter who I meet. And I'm willing to be rejected so that I can be my authentic self. You have to be okay with people saying, you're not my cup of tea. I like to say, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm coffee. I'm not tea at all. I know exactly what I am. I'm coffee. And so if you don't drink coffee, it's okay. Go find yourself a group of tea drinkers and live your life. Live it to the best of your ability. But I'm coffee. And so I'm not going to try to be tea when I know I'm coffee. And I say that to anybody. Try as much as possible. I can't remember who it is. I think it's somebody named E.E. Milne. I think he said the most challenging thing you can be in this life is to be yourself. Because every single day, someone is trying to take you out of who your true nature is. Someone is trying to take you out of your character every single day. Whether you're like me, like I was on the road yesterday and somebody almost sideswiped me. and I realized that my true authentic self has been delivered from profanity, because the only thing that came out of my mouth was, hey, what are you doing? I wasn't even angry. I was just surprised that the person was trying to sideswipe me. And I knew in that moment, I was like, whoa, I've been delivered from road rage, because in the past, that probably would not have been my response. All right. And so we have to recognize and stand in our own authenticity, stand in our own truth, which means we have to know who we are. It's hard to be authentic when you don't know who you are, right? And many times people who don't know who they are, they might go through a searching and exploration period where they're trying to mimic what they see because they're still searching for who they really are. All right. So he says here, maybe we've never been fortunate enough to have ever experienced an authentic connection with another human being. We may not know what such a connection looks or feels like. We may not even realize that such a relationship is possible. One of the most beautiful things you can ever experience in a marriage, all right? One of the most beautiful things you can experience in a marriage is when you are in a marriage, let me just say, ordained by God. I can only speak to those. It literally feels like your soul and the other person's souls can be at one with each other or at peace with each other and unashamed. And maybe there's some married people who will be watching today who can help me out, because I'm trying to really describe it. But my soul and my spouse's soul are able to be at peace with each other. They're not warring against each other. They're not in competition with each other. They're just simply content with each other. And I cannot say that I have ever felt that in any other relationship that I've had. I have friends, I have close friends, and I have family, but there is a soul connection that I experience with my spouse that I don't experience with other people. There's a transparency that I experience in my marriage that I don't experience in other relationships. And so he talks about the fact here that we may think the paltry connections that false selves have with one another are intimacy, and that they are the best we can offer one another. At the same time, something inside of us tells us that all of this isn't enough. Although we may not be able to put words to the feeling, we yearn for something more, something real, something authentic. We are exhausted from our attempts to maintain lies we have tried to live by. The need to belong. These 5 myths create innumerable childhood wounds. When we repeatedly experience our needs as unimportant, we eventually come to believe that we are unimportant. When children attempt to fulfill their own needs, and those attempts conflict with an adult's desires, or often a rule, the adult typically responds with judgment, anger, an expression of dismay, and rejection. Over time, children learn to ignore or deny or discount their own words. And as we talked about yesterday, when a child is denied their ability to reason, you actually open that child up to grooming by a predatory person, because you've told them and you've taught them that what they want, right, their own ideas, mind, thought, bodily autonomy is not as important as what an adult wants from them. So if you're not allowing your child to reason, and you're not giving your child the opportunity to ask you questions, and you're not willing to give a reason, and you say things to your child like, you're going to do it because I say so, you're actually teaching your child that reasoning is not an important skill. That critical thinking is not an important skill, especially when an adult is telling you something. So what happens, unfortunately, in a lot of cases that I have either read or heard, okay, from people who have experienced abuse, one of the things that happens is they thought that they were doing a good thing by obeying the adult. They might not have realized that what the adult was asking them was inappropriate, because they were told that if an adult asks you to do something, you do it without question. And that's a very dangerous ideology in this day and age to instill in your child. Your child needs to be able to reason, to critically think about what people are asking them to do, adult or otherwise. We all have a basic need to belong, to not be rejected by others, especially by our parents and other powerful adults in our life. As a result, to avoid rejection, many of us learned at an early age to focus our efforts on pleasing other people. However, some of us did the opposite. When our efforts to get approval failed, we became defiant, hoping to salvage a bit of our self-esteem. Still, others tried to become invisible as a way to avoid others' judgment and rejection. So you have three categories that when people are experiencing this pressure to conform, you have three things that can happen. Number one, they either wind up being extreme conformers, and then we have to deliver you and have deliverance sessions with you about your addiction to people pleasing. There are a lot of people now who are now having to get free from people pleasing addictions. They're doing things that are harmful to themselves because they are now addicted to pleasing people, and it started in childhood. Then you have the second option, the second thing that happens. People become rebellious. I was in that camp. People become rebellious. I can't please you anyway, so I might as well do what I want to do. That's the rebellion camp. And then there are the people who become invisible. They shrink into themselves. They try to be as invisible as possible to adults. They might hide most of the time. They might be quiet or silence their own voice because they feel like if they're invisible, then nobody will expect much out of them. And so now you have people who are finally coming out of the shell of invisibility, which is a great thing, all right? They're coming into their own. And, of course, the people who have expected them to act a certain way all of their life no longer like them. And they don't like this new visible them that is coming forward. All right? As Diana Ross said, they're coming out. They want the world to know. They want to let it show because they have spent most of their lives in invisible mode. And so people who are no longer in invisible mode, they now have to address people who don't like the fact that they're no longer in invisible mode, because that has been comfort zone for the people who are around them. All right? Whatever our childhood survival pattern was, it all came from the same need to be loved, to count, to matter. That is to belong. Myths 3 and 4 have taught us that we don't matter very much. They also teach us that in order to matter to adults, we need to subordinate ourselves to their desires and rules. There's 1,001 ways I could relate that to church scenarios, but I won't do that today. As we grow up, we internalize and normalize these messages. We take them for granted, believe they are true and inevitable, and assume nothing can be done to change them. We get used to being verbally abused, so used to it that we tell ourselves it is no big deal, just a part of life. We normalize not being seen as important, not being heard, or not having our needs met. As a result, we actually become more and more angry and resentful, and more depressed, and more anxious about our place in life. Eventually, as we learn to live our lives according to myth, we don't take time for ourselves. We get so focused on others that we lose our ability to even know what we want, what will make us happy, or what would be fun to us. We stop having dreams of our own. Some of us become social martyrs. Meanwhile, we regularly pass on these same messages to others, including our own children. I want to read you another thought from the world famous Dietrich Bonhoeffer. No, not Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Wrong quote. This one is by Sharuk Ibrahim, and I thought it was very powerful. It says, "May you never be the reason why someone who loved to sing doesn't anymore." Most of us know at least one person that we've encountered in life that made us want to stop living. Don't be that person. May you never be the reason why someone who dressed differently now wears standard clothing. May you never be the person who silences someone else's dreams. May you never be why someone who always spoke of their dreams wildly is now silent about them. May you never be the reason for someone giving up on a part of themselves because you were demotivating, non-appreciative, or even worse, sarcastic about it. Most of us have had encounters with people who literally pour water on your fire. People who want you to calm down about living and about life. People who say that you are just too over the top, or you are too much, or your energy is just too much. People who have become demotivating, non-appreciative, sarcastic, and many times dream killers. May you, the rest of this year, steer clear of the dream killers. But also on the other side of that, may you watch your own attitude and your own voice and make sure that you are not killing the dreams of others. Make sure you're not passing on unhealthy behaviors to the people in your life, especially children. Up until now, he says, I've written about how 5 myths affect our interactions with each other. However, their effects go well beyond person-to-person relationships. They also warp how we view our place in the universe. As they become embedded in our minds and hearts, they create a worldview based on the following assumptions. The world, laws, social and religious norms, commerce, communication, and even the weather is supposed to revolve around me. That it is the job of life to make me happy. That when I'm not happy or things don't go well for me, I'm entitled to feel betrayal by life and act like an angry victim. These assumptions are largely unconscious. Most of us have no idea that they are running and sometimes ruining our lives. Yet none of them is remotely true, and it's easy to recognize the narcissism embedded inside of them. Just as we can't make other human beings do and say and be what we want, we cannot coax the world into compliance with our desires. We can do good deeds, we can pray, we can follow all the rules, and we can do our best. Yet, whatever we do, sometimes we get the results we want, and sometimes we don't. Or, as Rabbi Rami Shapiro puts it, our prayers are always answered, and sometimes the answer is no. The world does not exist to make us happy. Life is often hard or painful or disappointing. We all have seasons of those. As long as you are a human being in this earth, in this body, in this terrestrial plane, you're going to experience things that happen in this life. All right? So it's about more how you respond to it than about what is happening to you. This is not a new or radical insight. It is sometimes called the tragic vision, which has been widely noted and discussed by writers, theologians, and philosophers for centuries. In recent decades, Scott Peck and Thomas Sowell have both written on the subject. It is also one of the foundational principles of psychotherapy. I've traveled all around the world. When I visited Jordan, Bhutan, Russia, and other countries that don't have the wealth, opportunity, political freedom, or mild weather that we have in most of the United States, here's what struck me. People in those countries have accepted that life can be hard. They don't question this reality or ask or expect or demand that life be otherwise. Although life is usually less harrowing in rich and relatively safe nations, it is still difficult and painful because that is a part of the nature of life. Yet we often do our best to shy away from this basic reality. The unrealistic view that the job of the world is to make us happy results in our feeling miserable and like a victim. Lastly, perhaps That has created part of the problem. Maybe it's time to try listening and trusting ourselves, to try listening and trusting and examining life as it is. And then, as people of faith, we take life as it is, and we grasp the fact that in faith, life can be as God intended for it to be. So we're going to stop there in everyday narcissism. And we're going to read shortly from Essentialism. And we were on chapter 6. Look, see what really matters. See what really matters. The bigger picture. This is a scenario. On December 29th, 1972, Eastern Airlines Flight 401 crashed into the Florida Everglades, killing over 100 passengers. It was the first ever crash of a wide-body aircraft and one of the worst airline crashes in U.S. history. The investigators were later shocked to discover that in all vital ways, the plane had been in perfect working condition. So, what went wrong? The Lockheed jet had been preparing to land when First Officer Albert Stockstill noticed that the landing gear indicator, a tiny green light that signals the nose gear is locked down, had not lit up. Yet the nose gear was locked. The problem was the indicator light, not the gear function. While the officers were hyper-focused on the gear indicator, however, they failed to notice that the autopilot had been deactivated until it was too late. In other words, the nose gear did not cause the disaster. The crew's losing sight of the bigger problem, the altitude of the plane, did. Being a journalist of your own life will force you to stop hyper-focusing on all the minor details and see the bigger picture. You can apply the skills of a journalist no matter what field you are in. You can even apply them to your personal life. By training yourself to look for the lead, you will suddenly find yourself able to see what you have missed. You'll be able to do more than simply see the dots of every day. You'll also connect them to see the trends. Instead of just reacting to the facts of your life, you'll be able to focus on larger issues that really matter. So I'm going to go into the first one here, which is called Filter for the Fascinating. We know instinctively that we cannot explore every single piece of information we encounter in our lives. And let me throw this caveat in there. You cannot explore every single piece of information that other people give you about their life if you're going to stay focused on your assignment. Discerning what is essential to explore requires us to be disciplined in how we scan and filter all the competing and conflicting facts, options, and opinions constantly vying for our attention. This is important if you are going to live a successful life and get done your purpose. Because I can tell you, as technology increases and social media influence becomes more and more and more and more and more, you're going to have people vying for your attention, vying for your ears, vying for your hands, vying for your heart, vying for your eyeballs, vying for your money, vying for your voice. You're going to have people all day long, every day, saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. Hear what I have to offer. Buy this. Join this. Pay attention to this. Be concerned about this. And you have to learn how to filter. And you have to learn how to filter for the fascinating. You have to learn how to filter for what is important to you at this point in time in your life. What is necessary for you to focus on? I have this conversation at least twice a day with people who send me all kinds of information. And my main thing is focus. Does it have anything to do with what God called me to do? That's the main question I ask. So no matter how much I love you, how wonderful I think you are, how much I care about you, I have a responsibility to my call. I have a responsibility to my life purpose. Therefore, if you're trying to share something with me that is hindering or interfering with that, at the moment you share it, I may not get to it. It may be weeks before I get to it because I have learned to filter what is currently important. Who's important to me right now? Who am I supposed to be serving right now? These are questions you can ask yourself. He says, recently I chatted with Thomas Friedman, the New York Times columnist and award-winning journalist, about how to filter the essential information from the non-essential noise. Before I met with him, he had been at a lunch meeting with sources for a column he was writing. Someone at lunch thought at first that he was not paying attention to the banter at the table, but he was listening. He was taking in the whole conversation at the table. He was simply filtering out everything other than those things that really grabbed his attention. Then he tried to connect the dots by asking lots of questions only about the conversations that piqued his interest. The best journalists, as Friedman shared later with me, listen for what others do not hear. This is something that the Holy Spirit will teach you, by the way. He will teach you to listen for what people are not saying. They're usually saying it with their body language, not with their mouth. He will teach you to listen for what people are not saying. And he will teach you to listen for what others do not hear. At the lunch, he had been listening for what was being said only at the periphery. He was listening more for what was not being said. Essentialists are powerful observers and listeners. Knowing that the reality of trade-offs means they can't possibly pay attention to everything, they listen deliberately for what is not being explicitly stated. And here's a key. If you're always talking, it's hard to be listening. If you're always talking, it's hard to be listening. If you're always talking, if you're always leading the conversation, it's hard to be listening. They read between the lines. If you're always talking, when do you have time to read between the lines? As Hermione Granger of Harry Potter fame says, actually, I'm highly logical, which allows me to look past extraneous detail and perceive clearly that which others overlook. Non-essentialists listen too, but they listen while preparing to say something. They get distracted by extraneous noise. They hyper-focus on inconsequential details. They hear the loudest voice, but they get the wrong message. In their eagerness to react, they actually wind up missing the point. Raise your hand or put some hearts on the screen if you've seen a conversation online where you realize that the person responding actually missed the point. I see them all the time. I usually see them in a group of about 45,000 people. Let me give you an example. Someone puts up an image of a famous celebrity, and it may be the celebrity's birthday. So the person is putting up a picture, and it'll say, on this day, blah, 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 such and such was born. Happy birthday. You go to the comment section, and you will see random stuff. You will see Oh, this person was married to so and so. Oh, I don't like how this person wears their hair. Oh, I remember when this person played in such and such. Like, that's not the point. Or, I dislike this person. They get on my last nerve. I don't like anything that they've been in. I don't like what they accomplished. They were a horrible person. We shouldn't be honoring them. That's not the point. The point of the post was to acknowledge that the person was born and to say happy birthday. Yeah. Sometimes in our eagerness to react, we can actually miss the point. As a result, they may, using metaphor from C.S. Lewis, run around with fire extinguishers in times of flood. They miss the lead. So, a non-essentialist pays attention to the loudest voice, hears everything being said, is overwhelmed by all the information. An essentialist pays attention to the signal in the noise, hears what is not being said, and scans to find the essence of the information. In the chaos of the modern workplace, with so many loud voices all around us, pulling us in many directions, it is more important now than ever that we learn to resist the siren song of distraction and keep our eyes and ears peeled for the headlines. Here are a few ways to tap into your inner journalist. So, Lord willing, next week on Monday, we're going to talk about tapping into your inner journalist. Listen, I want to thank you all for your time and attention today. I hope I have said something about relationships within that will help you on your own personal journey to a better fulfilled life and being your authentic self. I am going to wish my Facebook Live audience a goodbye as we now turn to our time of comments and questions on Periscope. If you would like to join us on Periscope, I'm going to put up the address for you to join us there for comments and questions. Thank you, Facebook Live audience, and we'll see you over there.